What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deeper Dive CFB. Today's going to be part 2 of my Week 10 recap. We're going to be going through the results of the Pac12, the SEC, and then some Group of 5 teams. So once again, guys, we are going to be going conference by conference. Check the description below for time markers so y'all can navigate your way through this video. And with that, guys, let's get right into it.
Yeah, and I'll be right here in my spot with a little more cash than I already got. Tripping off you because you had your shot with my skin tan.
Alright, guys, first story in the Pac12. Oregon pulls away from USC late and ends up smoking the Trojans 56-24. This game looked to be all Trojans early. I mean, it was 10-0 after the first quarter, but there were a series of mistakes by USC that really let Oregon back into the game. Keaton Slovis threw an interception early in the second quarter that eventually led to a touchdown for the Ducks. There was also a fumble in the red zone that also led to a touchdown, and then Keaton Slovis threw a pick six, and all of a sudden it was a 21-10 game just like that. Credit Keaton Slovis did lead a nice 2-minute drive to make it a 21-17 game, but for some reason USC with 20 seconds left decided to kick it away, and Oregon made him pay. It was a 100-yard return, and it made it 20-17, and really just wiped away all that momentum. Slovis and the USC offense, it kind of helped them regain. And then first possession of the second half, Oregon was able to score and make it 35-17. Slovis threw another pick, and then Oregon was able to score off of that, and it was 42-17. At that point, the game was over. Give a lot of credit to Oregon. Justin Herbert played a really good game on the road. Finished 21-26 for 225 yards and 3 touchdowns versus just 1 pick. 3 of those touchdowns came to Juwan Johnson. He only had 6 catches coming to the game, but he had a big game, obviously 3 touchdowns and 106 yards. Their star running back, C.J. Verdell, who's coming off a 257-yard game against Washington State. He only had 6 carries for 12 yards, but Travis Dye and Darian Felix really led the way for the Ducks. They combined to run the ball 22 times for 118 yards and really establish a consistent run game, and it was just a solid win for the Ducks. They were obviously able to take advantage of some mistakes from true freshman and Keaton Slovis, but at the end of the day, I think there's no question that Oregon was a better team in this game, and they improved 8-1. Looking at the road ahead for Oregon, they'll have a bye week after this one, and then they'll host Arizona, who's starting to fall a little bit. They're 4-5 right now. They'll have to go to Arizona State. I think that's definitely their toughest test remaining, unless they have to play Utah in the Pac-12 championship. And then they'll close the year against Oregon State, who's actually starting to look a little bit better. They'll have that game in Autzen Stadium. So the road certainly looks pretty good for the Oregon Ducks. I mean, they're 8-1, have won their last 8 games. But looking at USC, guys, fall to 5-4, and Clay Helton's fate is all but sealed with this loss. Coming off a 5-7 season last year, a lot of expectations this year. Their AD resigned, and I just think it only makes sense for USC to turn the page and try to go get Urban Meyer. He's probably their top target. USC is hiring a new AD in Mike Bone from Cincinnati, so maybe some sort of Ohio connection there. Big headline in this one, though, is Keaton Slovis was forced to throw the ball 57 times. USC's had a lot of running back injuries, and they put way too much pressure on Slovis. Finished 32-57 for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he did have those 3 picks. That's for USC. They'll go to Arizona State next week. I think Herm Edwards has his program in a little bit better place than Clay Helton. I think now that USC's at 5-4, I mean, they have had some big wins this year, beat Utah, but really have kind of come down to earth a little bit. I think that's for sure a possible letdown game for the Trojans. We'll see, but big story, guys. Oregon goes into the Coliseum and dominates, improves to 8-1. Next in the Pac-12, guys, Utah improves to 8-1 with an impressive 33-28 road win at Washington. Jacob Eason, like we've seen in a lot of games this year, started really hot. He had a 34-yard touchdown to Hunter Bryant that made it 14-3 in the second quarter. You have to give a lot of credit to Tyler Huntley and the Utah offense. Stayed right in the game and made it 14-13 at halftime. Jacob Eason did respond in the third quarter, found Hunter Bryant again for a 40-yard touchdown to make it 21-13. But for sure, the huge turning point in this game is Eason threw a pick six late in the third quarter that made it 21-19. And Utah being able to stifle the Washington offense and create such a big takeaway really got their offense back into it. I mean, Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss completely took over from there, and Washington had 2 straight 3-and-outs after that, and like I said, Utah just took control of the game. Utah quarterback Tyler Huntley, like I mentioned, had a remarkable game, was 19-24 for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns. Zach Moss had 32 touches for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns as well, so Zach Moss is definitely the best running back in the Pac-12, and just seeing how Utah relies on him both as their running back and as a pass catcher, very good stuff there. And Tyler Huntley threw 2 or 3 really good deep balls that led the scoring drives for the Utes, and they were able to go into Seattle into a tough environment against a really good Washington team and pull out a 33-28 win. Get a much needed bye, and then they have a fairly easy end of the year. They'll host UCLA after the bye. UCLA is getting hot, as we'll mention in a second, but I think that's definitely a game that Utah should have no problem with. They'll go on the road to Arizona, who's starting to come down to earth. 4 straight losses for them, and then they'll host Colorado to end the year. So there's really no reason to think that Utah is not going to be 11-1 and playing the Pac-12 championship. It's going to take a big upset for that to happen, but at the end of the day, guys, I like Utah a lot, and they played really well Saturday, pulling out a 33-28 win. Next in the Pac-12, guys, like I mentioned, UCLA is able to win their 3rd straight games. They topped Colorado 31-14. This program has completely turned around in the last month. Just a month ago, they dropped to 1-5 with a 48-31 loss against Oregon State on October 5th, and Chip Kelly was getting a lot of heat after that. I mean, and rightfully so. He's some offensive guru that was supposed to come in and really turn things around for UCLA, and it just didn't look like it was clicking. During their bye week after that loss, something must have clicked because they've come back with 3 straight wins. 34-16 win at Stanford, dominant in that game. Beat Arizona State last week, who's a really good team. And then obviously this one. The one thing that they really started to do is defense has really been able to prevent the big play. They held Colorado to just 283 yards of offense. Sophomore quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson was terrific once again, was 21 of 28 for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their running back Joshua Kelly has had a great last 3 games. In this one, he had 23 carries for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns, but last 3 games, he had 466 yards and 7 touchdowns, so they've really made him their workhorse, and he's certainly a huge reason why they've been able to turn things around the last 3 weeks. But as for UCLA, sitting at 4-5, obviously, they still have to go on the road and play Utah, and they'll still have to go on the road and play USC. I don't think they're going to go on the road and beat Utah, but I think that USC game is certainly becoming more intriguing. With all the rumors that Clay Helton's going to get fired, and UCLA is only trending upwards, I think that'll be a really good game. But big story here, guys, UCLA continues to play really well, and things seem to be turning around for Chip Kelly and the Bruins. Last story in the Pac-12, guys. Oregon State wins their 3rd straight Pac-12 road game as the Beavers go on the road to Tucson and beat Arizona 56-38. Their quarterback Jake Luton has been terrific this year. He only has 1 interception on the season, and he had a great game against Arizona. Was 20 of 26 for 328 yards and 3 touchdowns. Found Isaiah Hodgins 7 times for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hodgins has been a deep threat for him all year. Certainly won in this game. And they have a good duo of running backs. So they have Artavis Pierce and Jermar Jefferson. Both had over 100 yards and touchdowns in this one. So very balanced football. And as for Oregon State, they're going to host Washington on Friday. I think Washington now 5-4. Much like USC, been a disappointing year. I think the only difference with Washington is Chris Peterson is certainly the guy there. And I think Jacob Eason coming back next year. I think there's still hope for the Huskies moving forward, but a possible trap game for Washington. They're obviously down coming off the loss to Utah. Maybe a game the Beavers can pull off an upset. We'll see. But as for Arizona, guys, Kevin Sumlin, year 2 for the Wildcats, started off the year 4-1, but 4 straight losses have really tarnished the season, and they'll have to go to Oregon. They'll host Utah, and they'll go on the road to Arizona State. So three of the top teams in the Pac-12, they still got to play. So it's certainly looking like they're not going to make a bowl game. But big story out of this one, guys. Oregon State now 4-5, and much like UCLA, seem to be turning things around a little bit. Moving on to the SEC, guys. Big story of this one was the Florida-Georgia game, and Georgia used exceptional quarterback play from Jake Fromm and took down Florida 24-17. Jake Fromm was terrific, like I said. Led Georgia to be 12 of 18 on 3rd down versus just 2 of 9 from Florida. Fromm finished 20 of 30 for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns, so certainly got a lot of criticism after the South Carolina loss, and definitely responded in a big way in this one. DeAndre Swift had 25 carries for 86 yards, so couldn't really get the run game going. But Fromm used Lawrence Cager, who's a Miami transfer, a very long receiver. He had 7 catches for 132 yards and a touchdown. And he had a long touchdown in the 4th quarter that really put the game away for the Bulldogs. As for Florida, they only had 21 yards rushing, and their inability to run the ball really hurt them whenever they got in short yardage situations. So while Georgia running back DeAndre Swift wasn't able to break off a big run, was consistent enough to at least keep the Florida defense honest. But Florida's inability to run the ball just made them so one-dimensional, and it ended up being a huge reason why Georgia was able to win the game. Georgia, with this win, now controls their own destiny in the SEC East. Still yet to be seen about how Georgia's going to stack up as it pertains to the playoff. The first college football playoff rankings will come out tomorrow, so I think we'll have a little bit better idea then. But as for Georgia, they'll play Missouri next week, who's certainly come down to earth. Shouldn't have any trouble there. Jake Fromm had kind of tapered off there for a few games, but I think him having a big game is going to give him just that much more confidence. So certainly Georgia's in a really good spot now. And as for Florida, they'll play Vanderbilt next week. They'll have a pretty easy end of the year. Path to 10-2 is certainly there for the Gators. And honestly, year 2 under Dan Mullen, last year going to a New Year's Six Bowl and beating Michigan. This year, if they finish 10-2 and both those losses came to LSU and Georgia, that would be a fine second year for Dan Mullen. I think the big question is going to be whether he's ever going to be able to overtake Kirby Smart. I mean, Kirby Smart had that defense playing really well against Florida, just kind of got out-physical in this one. But you have to give a lot of credit to Georgia. They dominated this game, and now they control their own destiny in the SEC East. Next in the SEC, guys, Auburn avoids disaster and survives a scare from Ole Miss, winning this game 20-14. Looking into it, Auburn really dominated this game, but they just made a ton of mistakes. In the first half, they had 2 missed field goals, they had a fumble from Bo Nix on a miscommunication, and then they were held to a field goal inside the 5-yard line. So certainly a lot of points left on the field there. And you have to give a lot of credit to the Ole Miss defense, but certainly some unforced errors there for Auburn. And so it was 20-14 with 1 minute left. They sent out their kicker, Anders Carlson, and he ended up missing his 3rd field goal of the game. And so Ole Miss got one more crack at it, and they ended up getting to the Auburn 35. A drive kind of stalled, and Auburn was able to survive. As for Bo Nix, played really well on the stat sheet, was 30 of 44 for 340 yards. But the only knock on him is he was unable to finish drives for the Tigers. Todd Blackledge, who was the color analyst in this game, noted that Auburn is in desperate need of a QB run game just for those short yardage situations. And obviously their backup quarterback Joey Gatewood was the perfect guy for that role and really excelled in that role all year. But he entered the transfer portal, and now they're kind of inept in that short yardage game. So definitely something to note there. And just looking at the road ahead for Auburn, they'll have a bye next week, and then they'll host Georgia. It's going to be another big game for Auburn. We'll see if Bo Nix is able to finally win one of these big games as a freshman. Certainly be a big step for that program and Gus Malzahn. But looking at Ole Miss, guys, they've lost 5 of their last 6. They'll host New Mexico State next week before hosting LSU. I'm a huge fan of Matt Luke, the Ole Miss head coach. He played at Ole Miss. He's been at Ole Miss for a long time, but third year now. They've been plagued by some of the sanctions that came from the Hugh Freeze scandal, but like I said, year 3, and they don't seem to be going anywhere. Might be on the hot seat. We'll see. But big story in this one, guys, nevertheless. Auburn's able to pull out a close win at home. Next in the SEC, guys, Tennessee and A&M take care of their Group of 5 opponents at home. Starting with Tennessee, they were able to beat UAB 30-7. The Volunteer defense played really well in this one. They held UAB to just 237 yards of offense. Quarterback Jarrett Garantano, who's received a lot of criticism, played most of the game in this one. Finished 13-21 for 147 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Running back Ty Chandler emerged with 16 carries, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Things are really starting to look upward for Tennessee. They're 4-5 now. Jeremy Pruitt's really turning things around the last few weeks. Big win last week against Mississippi State. I think being able to beat Mississippi State kind of shows that, yeah, things aren't turned around yet, but we're not quite at the bottom of the SEC, and they'll have a big game against Kentucky next week. I mean, this is a big game. It's obviously a rivalry game, and at the end of the day, if Jeremy Pruitt's able to win this one, improve the 5-5, they'll have a clear path to make a bowl game, which would be an improvement from last year. Like I said, guys, big game next week against their rival Kentucky. And honestly, I would give the Volunteers the advantage at this point. And then as for A&M, they crushed UTSA 45-14. Kellen Mond played well once again with 16-21 for 211 yards and a touchdown. Freshman running back Isaiah Spiller had a breakout game in this one. 20 carries, 217 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Defense played really well, holding UTSA to just 231 yards of offense. So A&M is now 6-3. They'll have a bye before they host South Carolina, and then they have a really tough end of the year playing at Georgia and at LSU. But Jimbo Fisher has his team winning the games they're supposed to. We'll see if they can build up enough confidence, beat South Carolina, head into those final 2 weeks 7-3, and possibly pull off an upset. Last story in the SEC, guys. South Carolina and Mississippi State take care of business, but those results put Arkansas coach Chad Morris and Vanderbilt coach Derek Mason directly on the hot seat. Starting with the Arkansas-Mississippi State game, Mississippi State went into Fayetteville and won 54-24, and this game just wasn't even close. It wasn't even fair. It was 38-10 at halftime. Mississippi State had 460 yards of rushing. That is just unbelievable. Running back Kylan Hill had 21 carries for 234 yards and 3 touchdowns, just dominated the Arkansas defense. The Bulldogs got Tommy Stevens, transfer from Penn State, back healthy. He played really well, was 12 of 18 for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now Mississippi State, after kind of a bad middle of the year, is now 4-5. They'll obviously play Bama, which shouldn't be close. They'll probably be at 4-6 after that one. But then they close with Abilene Christian and Ole Miss, 2 very winnable games. So possibly Joe Moorhead turning things around, and he'll be able to get the Bulldogs to a bowl game. But for sure, the big story out of this one is the Arkansas team. Chad Morris' team is just in total disarray right now. Their quarterback situation is just pitiful. A&M transfer Nick Starkel didn't play in this one, so they went to backup quarterback Ben Hicks, who's actually an SMU transfer, and he was just atrocious. Was 4 of 13 for 44 yards. And something to note, they put in third-string quarterback John Stephen Jones. He's actually Jerry Jones' grandson. Obviously, Jerry Jones has connections with Arkansas football, so maybe John Stephen Jones can provide a spark for the Razorbacks and become the quarterback there. But one guy I really feel bad for through all this is Rakeem Boyd. If y'all watched Last Chance U on Netflix, Rakeem Boyd was a big star of that show. Started his career at Texas A&M, got into some trouble there, so went to Independence Community College, and was able to bounce back and get to a D1 program in Arkansas. He's really put together a great last 2 years, no different in this one. He had 11 carries for 114 yards and a touchdown. So you just got to feel really bad for him doing his job, but not getting any help from his defense, his quarterbacks, and certainly his head coach. Arkansas is going to host Western Kentucky next week. Not really sure what to think there. At the end of the day, Chad Morris is just not the guy. If I were Arkansas, I would move on at this point. And this is just speculation. I'm going to make videos surrounding the coaching carousel as we get towards the end of the year, but just something I want to throw out there. I think Mike Leach from Washington State would be a great fit at Arkansas. He obviously turned around Texas Tech. He's now turned around Washington State, and I think he'd be perfect for Arkansas. I think he's exactly what they need. So certainly something to watch there, but yeah, guys, Mississippi State bounces back. A bigger story, just another abysmal performance from Arkansas. Moving on to the South Carolina versus Vanderbilt game. South Carolina was able to beat Vanderbilt 24-7. Vanderbilt actually struck first in this one on their first drive. Got out to a 7-0 lead, but they only had 4 first downs after that first drive, totaling only 189 yards of offense on the whole game. And something I saw on Twitter from some guys from the SEC Network is the body language from Vanderbilt looked terrible in the second half. Possible that Derek Mason has just completely lost his team at this point. Commodore's now 2-6, and it's not like Derek Mason is just a second-year head coach. He's now been there for 4 or 5 years, so there's no excuses to be going 2-6 at this point. It's probably time to move on for the Commodores. As bad as Chad Morris is at Arkansas, he still is only in year 2. Derek Mason has no excuse to be going 2-6 right now, so I'd be really looking for Vanderbilt to move on. Give a lot of credit to South Carolina in this one. Freshman quarterback Ryan Helinski was 24-31 for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns, so certainly a bounce-back game for him, and certainly a nice win for the Gamecocks. But bigger story here, guys. Vanderbilt, just like Arkansas, just looks abysmal. That's it for the Power 5 conferences, guys, but I do want to move on to some results from the Group of 5 conferences because the highest rated Group of 5 team does get to play in a New Year's 6 bowl, and there's certainly a lot of teams still in it, a lot of really good football teams, so let's get right into it. Starting with Memphis and SMU, this game really lived up to the hype. Obviously, game day was in Memphis. It was a great crowd there. And like I said, game was really good. Memphis was able to edge SMU 54-48. This was really a back and forth game, and both quarterbacks really showed out in this one. Memphis quarterback Brady White was 19-33 for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. Found star receiver DeMonte Coxey 7 times for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he also found Antonio Gibson 6 times for 130 yards and a touchdown. But SMU quarterback Shane Buechele played as good, if not better, in this one. Finished 34-54 for 456 yards and 3 touchdowns. Found his number 1 receiver James Prochet 13 times for 149 yards and a touchdown. He also found Rashee Rice for 122 yards, and tight end Kylan Granton had 2 touchdowns as well. While both quarterbacks played really well, the difference in this game proved to be the run game, and Memphis just proved to be the more physical team. Memphis running back Kenneth Gainwell was really consistent. He had 21 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown, so didn't really break off a big run, but certainly provided that consistency and kept the SMU defense honest. As for SMU running back Xavier Jones, he only carried the ball 11 times for 22 yards, so really got stuffed by the Memphis defense. Mustangs did get a 68-yard touchdown run from Kamon Freeman, but that proved to be an outlier. One big run's not going to change the narrative, and at the end of the day, SMU just got out physical in this one. Definitely proved to be the difference. But as for SMU, they suffered their first loss of the season. Obviously very disappointing. They'll get East Carolina next week, who, as you'll see in a little bit, gave Cincinnati a run for their money. But big story in this game, guys, is Memphis, and they now hold the tiebreaker over SMU in the American West Division. They'll have a bye week, and then they'll go on the road to play U of H. Memphis is now kind of emerged as the favorite Group of 5 team to possibly make a New Year's 6 bowl. Still got a lot of football left to play, and the American Conference is certainly really good, so like I said, they'll have plenty of tough games ahead, but Memphis has kind of emerged as that number 1 team out of the American and in the Group of 5. Next story in the Group of 5, guys, number 20 Appalachian State is absolutely shocked at home by Georgia Southern, losing this game 24-21 on Thursday night. Georgia Southern has a run-heavy offense, and they dominated on the ground in this one. 335 yards rushing, just completely took control of the game early. This game was 24-7 entering the final quarter. Big blow to Appalachian State was quarterback Zach Thomas, was only 25 of 51 passing, very inefficient. Did have 271 yards and 3 touchdowns, but at the end of the day, just a little too late for the Mountaineers, and very disappointing for Appalachian State because with the SMU loss, they likely would have emerged as the number 1 team in the Group of 5 with a win. But at this point, they're likely out of the New Year's 6 race just because they play in the Sun Belt, which is much weaker than the American Conference. I mean, the American Conference is really good. So I would say Memphis, SMU, and these 2 teams we're going to mention here below certainly have a better shot than Appalachian State. Very disappointing for them because they had a good team. They've beaten North Carolina this year, so like I said, very disappointing, and they're probably out of it now. Next story in the Group of 5, guys. Navy dominates UConn and improves to 7-1. Navy obviously runs that triple option offense, and quarterback Malcolm Perry is built very well for it. He had 108 yards and 2 touchdowns in this one. He's had over 100 yards rushing in his past 5 games. As for Navy, they're actually first in the AAC West, technically tied with Memphis, but they do hold the tiebreaker. The only reason I would give Memphis the advantage at this point is Navy has to go on the road after their bye week next week and play Notre Dame, so likely a loss for the midshipmen, and we'll certainly see how the playoff committee ranks them after that Notre Dame game. Like I said, that'll be in 2 weeks, so certainly down the road, but Navy also has to play SMU, and I think that game's going to end up being a really good game. So like I said, Navy technically does hold the AAC West lead over Memphis, but a lot of football left to play. They still have to go play Notre Dame, have to play SMU. Memphis has a much easier road to the end of the year, but certainly something to consider as we head to the end of the year. Like I said, guys, Navy now 7-1 and making this Group of 5 race very interesting in the American West. Moving to the American East Division, Cincinnati moves to 7-1 and survives a scare from East Carolina as they're able to go on the road and win 46-43. Bearcats were actually trailing 40-28 after 3 quarters. Give a lot of credit to Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder, led them to a touchdown drive to make it a 1-possession game, and then Cincinnati defense came up big with a 62-yard pick 6 that gave them the lead, and then they were able to finish it off with a game-winning field goal as time expired. Ridder did have 2 picks in this one. He only finished 12 of 24, but he did have 146 yards rushing. Feet proved to be the difference in this one. Running back Michael Warren had 18 carries for 141 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Cincinnati is 7-1. They're another team out of the American that's right in it as far as making a New Year's 6 bowl. Their only losses on the road at Ohio State. They probably have the best resume at this point. The only thing, though, is the American East is a little easier than the American West. A lot of good teams in the West this year. Since Cincinnati did beat UCF and they hold the advantage over them, so Cincinnati should be making the American championship game. They still have to host Temple and go to Memphis. Hayes not in the barn for the Bearcats. I think Temple's a very good team, and obviously going on the road to Memphis could be an intriguing matchup there. So Cincinnati is 7-1. Like I said, they put themselves in a good position to compete for a New Year's Six Bowl as the season ends. Last in the group of 5, guys, Boise State's able to go on the road and get a win over San Jose State 52-42. Freshman phenom quarterback Hank Bachmeier was back in this one. Been dealing with injuries the last few weeks. Was 13-17 for 213 yards. And this was a very back and forth game, and San Jose State led after 3 quarters. Boise State running back George Holani took over this game though. Finished with 28 carries for 126 yards and 4 touchdowns. And it'll be very interesting to see where the playoff committee ranks Boise State in relation to some of these American teams. Probably fall a little bit below. One thing the playoff committee might note is during Boise State's loss on the road to BYU, which is certainly proven to be a tough environment. I mean, USC went on the road and lost. BYU also went on the road and beat Tennessee. It's possible the playoff committee gives them a little bit of slack, and they were also without quarterback Hank Bachmeier. Played backup quarterback Chase Cord, who had 2 picks in that one, and that proved to be the difference. So it'll be very interesting to see where the playoff committee ranks Boise State in relation to the American teams. And like I said, guys, I'm going to have a reaction video about the initial playoff rankings. They'll come out Tuesday night, and I'll have a video about that coming out Wednesday, so please be sure to check that out. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for my Week 10 recap. Just kind of some scheduling things, guys. I am looking to put out a video every day this week. Obviously, this video dropping Monday night. Tomorrow, I plan on dropping a short video just regarding the Florida State head coach situation. They obviously fired Willie Taggart. I'm going to go look through some candidates, just talk about that situation a little bit. Wednesday, I'm going to post my reaction to the initial college football playoff rankings. Late Thursday, early Friday, I'll post my Week 11 preview show. And then, as I promised you guys, I do want to devote a video to this LSU-Alabama game, kind of breaking down that game, giving a preview for that game. If y'all enjoyed the video, please sure to give it a thumbs up below. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. If y'all know anybody else who are college football junkies like we are, please share this video with them. Other than that, guys, comment if y'all have any questions. Follow me on Instagram at deeperdive_CFB. Twitter is the same handle. With that, guys, turn on your post notifications. Almost forgot that. But other than that, guys, that's all I got for y'all. Have a great day, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you.